They thought they had us. I mean, I did too, and so did everyone else. But the rest of the NFL, they thought they had the Packers figured out. What's up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Lombardi Time Brews. I am your host, John Delray. Today, we got a lot going on. There's three different main topics that I'm going to be talking about. I've got an injury report for you. I've got my thoughts on the Kenny Clark show that I was able to attend last night in Green Bay. And then I've also gathered my thoughts on who are the MVPs of the offensive side of the ball this year, position by position. And I'm going to be doing the same with the defense in a later video. But here we've got injury updates, Kenny Clark show, and positional MVPs. If you're new to the channel, welcome. Glad you're here for all of your Packers insight, or even if I'm just a small itty-bitty portion of all of the Packers content that you consume. Thanks so much for checking out Lombardi Time Brews. So, hey, let's dive right into the injury report. First of all, this happened just before I was about to start recording. There was a situation, and we don't know much yet, but there was a situation that occurred where EMTs in an ambulance were called to the Don Hutson Center where the Packers practice because of a practice squad player with a lower leg injury. That's all that I've been able to gather to this point, checking all of the different news sources. The team has not released the player name yet, as of at least my recording. But what we do know is that it was a practice squad player. We do know that it was severe enough in nature to call in EMTs. Now, there was one tweet that I found, news-related, that said, yes, the injury is severe, but the ambulance was more so for the sake of there was a mobility issue, and the hurt player would not be able to be transported in a standard cart. So what I don't know is, did the ambulance then go to the hospital? Did it just get them to the stadium because they couldn't go on a cart? Basically, we don't know, but we do know that there's a practice squad player who suffered some kind of severe injury today that EMTs had to attend to, and we certainly hope that everything is okay no matter who that happened to. Certainly, just to throw in an aside here, certainly a week where injuries in the NFL are maybe viewed with a little bit more reflection for a lot of people that watch this game with everything that happened in Buffalo. So certainly hope that the practice squad player recovers well. Now, in terms of who was injured on the active 53, what did they go through in practice today? Well, the following players, 6 of them, were all limited in practice today. That would be David Bakhtiari, Elton Jenkins, Aaron Jones, Yosh Nijman, Keyshawn Nixon, and Christian Watson. All of them did participate in practice, but on a limited basis. There were 2 players that did not practice. One would be Mercedes Lewis, pretty typical, especially this point in the year, for him to get a vet rest day. But the other one was Josiah DeGuara. Now, Josiah DeGuara has been playing very, very well, blocking, per some metrics, nearly as well as Mercedes Lewis, which just feels insane to say. DeGuara really has done a good job in that H-back role that they play him in occasionally. And so this could be a larger injury than you think of for the Packers, but he did not practice today because of a calf injury. Now, that was a surprise. We didn't know that. I didn't hear LaFleur say anything about it. So certainly we'll get more details tomorrow. But as of right now, all we know is Josiah DeGuara did not practice today due to a calf injury. We'll know more soon. Now, moving on to the Kenny Clark show. Yes, thanks for allowing me to bump this video back by a day. Last night, at the last second, I was afforded the opportunity. Normally, I can't go on Wednesday nights, but it all just kind of worked out that I was able to go to the Kenny Clark show, which is a radio show that he hosts in Green Bay at the Green Bay Distillery. A very nice restaurant for those of you who have never been. And it's done through 107.5 The Fan, WDUZ, a radio station in Green Bay. And it's basically Kenny Clark is there every other Wednesday Devondre Campbell is the every other Wednesday compared to Kenny Clark. And then each week, one of them also have on a special guest. Well, the special guest last night wound up being Tariq Carpenter, the rookie 7th-round pick, who's been doing a heck of a job as a gunner and special teamer as of late. And I thought that there were a few things from the show that were very, very interesting. First of all, just as a precursor for you, if you've never been and you're interested in ever going, one, I would recommend getting there early. If you get there too late, all of the tables, at the very least, are going to be gone. But, other than that, I would say, too, for those of you interested in autographs, this is an extremely friendly autograph environment. I was kind of shocked by that, actually. But every single time that there's a commercial break in the radio show, Kenny Clark just stays in his spot and everybody just goes up there, forms a line, and gets autographs for free. So if autographs is your deal, go check out the Kenny Clark show. Go check out the Devondre Campbell show on Opposing Wednesdays. This was one of the most accessible, chill events that I've ever been to for this kind of thing. And it was really, really nice. Tariq Carpenter did sign a bunch of autographs last night as well. Apparently, though, it's always up to the guest's discretion. They are not obligated, like the host of the show is, to sign autographs. But by all accounts, Tariq Carpenter was a great guest last night, and I saw him signing for a bunch of people. So very, very cool event. So in terms of what was actually said at the show, well, Kenny Clark was asked by the host, what is it about the defense that's different? Why all of a sudden is this defense playing like the top 5 defense that it always was supposed to be? And Kenny Clark said basically that everyone is now able to cut loose, that they're feeding off of each other, that it's all just a matter of cutting loose and energy and everything like that. But we also know that that's not entirely accurate. Because we do know about the coverage changes that Joe Barry has dialed up, especially since the second half of Minnesota. Or against Miami, I'm sorry. And then all throughout the Minnesota game. Like, we know that there's philosophical changes going on. Maybe they don't make a huge difference for Kenny, being where he is on the line. But we do know that the defense has schematically shifted. And it's working. If you're curious at all to know an in-depth look about the changes that the Packers are doing, there's a fantastic article written by Dair Carragher. I know I'm not saying that name rightly, and I'm very, very sorry. But Dair is spelled D-A-I-R-E. Go search him out on Twitter. He wrote a fantastic article tracking all of the metrics about how often did they use this coverage pre the Miami game, how often are they using it now, and you see that there have been some massive shifts in how the Packers are playing defense, and it's working. So for Kenny Clark to say that they're just cutting loose, yeah, they are, but there's more to it, Kenny, and we know it. He was also asked about what was it like in the locker room during the losing streak, and I thought he had a very interesting answer there where he talked about the team is really close, that these are a lot of really good friends playing together. That all along throughout the entire losing streak, they knew it was just a matter of 1 or 2 more plays just changing or executing a little better, and all of a sudden the floodgates would break open. Now, I wouldn't say that they've completely broken open yet, but certainly you see that this team has weathered the storm and is playing substantially better. It's not hard to see. Just thought his thoughts there were interesting. As for Tariq Carpenter, he was asked just some very general rookie questions, such as like, how you enjoying the weather? He's from Georgia. He's spent a lot of time in Arkansas growing up, so how's the weather? And he said, man, the weather is bad here for me every day. He joked how he still needs snow boots, barely just has a jacket at this point, and is still very much acclimating to the Green Bay weather. Also, if you didn't know, Tariq Carpenter actually grew up a Packer fan. Right after he was drafted, I remember the picture that was shared widely on Twitter of him in a Super Bowl 45 t-shirt, and he was just talking about how it's really cool that he's able to live his dream of playing for the Green Bay Packers. Also, just an aside, the last thing that I'm going to say about the Kenny Clark show, if you know who the first coach of the Green Bay Packers was, yes, the first coach, you officially know more about Packers history than Kenny Clark or Tariq Carpenter, because neither one of them knew it. Now, I will give full credit. They did know other things about Lombardi during the trivia session. They knew that the Packers were formed in 1919, not 1921, like even the Packers got wrong for a lot of years there. But neither one of them knew the first coach of the team. So if you know that, you know more than 2 current Packer players. Now, on to the positional MVPs. Again, I just gathered some thoughts on who is really excelling, who is carrying the group for each one of the positions, and a number of these are fairly obvious for the offensive side of the ball. Quarterback, obviously, it's Aaron Rodgers. When you're the only dude that plays, it's fairly easy to win your MVP, right? Jordan Love obviously showed his remarkable spark. The Packers, by all indications, believe that he can be a quarterback of the future, but he also hasn't played enough to full on say like, oh yeah, he's better at the position than Rodgers. Of course not. We can't say that. So Aaron Rodgers is your MVP at quarterback. At running back, I'm going to give it to Aaron Jones. A.J. Dillon has been a very steadying presence, especially as Aaron Jones has gotten nicked up. But there's some really cool stats about Aaron Jones that I wanted to tell you. First of all, just the easy box score stuff. He's got 201 carries for 1,073 yards and a 5.3 yard average. He also has 56 catches for 375 yards and a grand total of 7 touchdowns on the season. But here's where it gets really cool. He's top 15 in the total number of broken tackles across the NFL. He also is the top running back in the NFL with at least 120 carries in yards per carry. Yeah, I mean, he is having a phenomenal year, both catching the ball and running the ball. Perhaps his best season, which is really saying something compared to, or judging on how he's been for the last 3 years. And he's really worked himself to be an indispensable portion of the offense. I still stand by my prediction that despite his cap number, he's not going anywhere next year. I think they're going to work out that contract. I think he stays in Green Bay at least 1 more year. The wide receiver position, sure, you may not like this one a lot because he hasn't played all year, but come on, how can you deny Christian Watson being the MVP of the wide receiver position? And here's just a couple key stats. Not even Watson's stats himself, not the 9 total touchdowns, not the fact that he's in the odds running for Offensive Rookie of the Year now, according to Vegas. Just some total team stats that really show you the impact of Christian Watson. You know, if you look at the box score, you can say that he really, truly started to come on about week 10. That is when he got healthy. That's when he started making impact, right? Well, since week 10, the Packers are second in the NFL in offensive DVOA. It's fantastic. Since week 9, they are 7th in total points scored and 8th in point differential. It just goes to show that what the team was lacking in the early part of the season truly was Christian Watson and his size and his speed. No, he is not the most polished receiver on the team. No, he's not. No doubt about it. He is, however, the most athletically gifted. And what this offense was lacking was someone who can take the top off the defense. We knew it all along. At least I personally didn't think it was going to make this much of an impact when he came back. And we're seeing it now. And it's not just your gut telling you as you watch the game. The numbers are bearing it out. Second in offensive DVOA since week 10 when Christian Watson really became a full-fledged part of the offense. And if he's healthy, Detroit's secondary isn't the best. I'm going to be talking about that more tomorrow in the Packer-Lion game preview. But, you know, Detroit can be scored on. No doubt about it. And Christian Watson wasn't exactly a large part of the game plan. These two teams faced each other. So he may be having a big game on Sunday. We'll see. And then the last one I'm going to cover for today, the tight end position. Now, he did have a quiet start to the season. But honestly, I got to go Mercedes Lewis. Yes, Robert Tonyan has proved to be, at times, a very valuable safety blanket for Rodgers, especially early in the season as the offense was outright broken. Robert Tonyan was leading the team in receptions for a while, but he never had the playmaking ability that he had 2 years ago pre the ACL injury. A lot of his catches this year have been caught and then tackled right there. Not a lot of yards after catch, not a lot of yards after contact. He isn't breaking open over the seam like we saw nearly as much 2 years ago. He does look like a different player now. And part of that could still be because of the knee injury, of course. but he's not the impact guy that he was 2 years ago. And certainly, with Christian Watson taking off and Randall Cobb healthy, Robert Tunyon's role in the offense has diminished from what it even was earlier in the year. And I know he just had a big touchdown catch against Minnesota. Regardless, you're not expecting to see many more 10, 11 catch games for Robert Tonyan like he did a couple times earlier in the year. So Mercedes Lewis, for me, is the most valuable tight end on the roster right now. And why? Because the guy is basically a sixth offensive lineman. He still is one of the top blocking tight ends in the league. Over his 69 pass blocking snaps, he's given up only 2 hurries. And according to PFF, he has a 98.4 efficiency at pass blocking. Right up there with a certain dude named David Bakhtiari. I mean, Mercedes Lewis is a monster at defending the pass. And he's also, on run blocking, one of the top run blockers on the team. His impact on the game goes far beyond the box score. If you do want to care about the box score, he does have this year 6 catches for 66 yards and 2 touchdowns. But to me, he is still the most valuable tight end on this roster. And as I said, in the predictions for the roster for this offseason, tight end is one of the top positions on this team you can expect to be reworked. Now, the other one who I think deserves just a little bit of contention at the tight end position does have to be Josiah DeGuara, just like I mentioned earlier in the show. Josiah DeGuara has been doing a heck of a job out of the H-back role. He's been blocking incredibly well, nearly as well as Mercedes Lewis, but it's nearly as well. And while Josiah DeGuara does have more receiving chops than Mercedes, he's not exactly being targeted frequently. We know that. So I think Josiah DeGuara's role in this offense next year will continue to grow, especially if Robert Tonyan doesn't return. But for right now, for me, the top tight end is Mercedes Lewis. So there you have it. Quarterback, Aaron Rodgers. Running back, Aaron Jones. Wide receiver, Christian Watson. Tight end, Mercedes Lewis. And you know what? I totally failed. I forgot a very important cog of the offense, the offensive line. Right? I forgot. It was on the next page of my notes. Don't judge me. But Elgton Jenkins, to me, is the offensive line MVP. Yeah, he started out slow with his ACL injury. He did. But the truth is, he's not allowed a single pressure since week 10. And only 4 total since moving back to left guard. But again, not a single pressure since week 10. Also, his 73.8 run blocking grade from PFF happens to be the highest on the team. Elgton Jenkins is back to being that guy. Yes, when he was playing right tackle earlier in the year, it wasn't his best football. He was still coming back from the knee injury. You could see it on the tape. You could see that he wasn't moving as well as he had in the past. But he's back. And I don't know if his long-term future is at guard. I don't know if it's a tackle. His contract seems to tip it either way, considering the incentives that they built in for him playing tackle. But what we do know is that because they locked him up for the foreseeable future, the Packers have retained a key foundational piece of this roster in Elgton Jenkins, and consistently their best offensive lineman this year. So that's all I have for you today. Thanks for checking out Lombardi Time Brews. Make sure you check it out tomorrow. Yes, tomorrow afternoon. I'll be posting the game preview for Packers versus Lions, the win and you're in showdown in Lambeau. So check out that game preview. It'll drop tomorrow. I hope you had a great few days here. I hope you have a great day tomorrow. And as always, go Pack Go.